Every moment of every day, we are either recovering or declining. There is no neutral ground.
Wow.
That's quite a statement, isn't it? Really makes you stop and think.
It absolutely does. Challenges the usual way we think about, well, everything. Health, healing.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving deep into today. The thinking behind Terrence Hughes' fascinating new book, The Invisible Injury. And specifically, this companion framework he has, the recovery as daily practice, the SAMBA approach.
Right, SAMBA.
Our mission here is really to challenge that conventional view of rehabilitation. You know, the idea that it's just about fixing something after it breaks.
Yeah, like a separate event.
Right. Instead, Hughes suggests it's this constant, intelligent process, and it applies to everyone, not just if you've got an obvious injury.
And that's the really mind-bending part in Hughes's work, and definitely central to SAMBA. This idea that we are all in rehab every single day.
All of us.
Yes. And at the same time, we're all in prehabilitation every day, too, because your body, you see, it isn't just sitting there. It's constantly adapting.
Okay.
Reorganizing itself, remodeling based on everything you do, everything you experience. So the big question the invisible injury forces us to ask is, are you doing this consciously?
Or unconsciously.
Exactly. Are you approaching it with intelligence, with curiosity? Or are you just, running on autopilot, repeating the same old patterns?
Okay, so if we're always adapting, let's get into this idea you mentioned from the book, the capability revelation. It sounds significant.
Oh, it is.
It suggests recovery isn't just about what you lost when you got hurt, but more about what you knew you had access to before that.
Precisely.
So the more aware you are of your body's full range, its capabilities, the better your chances of getting it back.
You've got it. It totally reframes how we view potential. Hughes calls it capability consciousness.
Capability consciousness, like being aware of your movement options.
Yeah, think of your nervous system having this this internal capability map.
Yeah.
It's constantly being drawn and redrawn based on how you move, what you explore. But here's the kicker. What Hughes calls the hidden capability principle. Most of us.
Yeah.
We only use a tiny fraction of our actual movement potential.
Really? Just a fraction?
A small fraction. If you haven't actively explored, say, how your shoulder blade connects and moves with your opposite hip.
Which most people probably haven't consciously done.
Right. Or how changing your breath subtly alters your balance. Or how emotion physically flows through your posture. Then when an injury happens, your recovery options are limited to what was already on that known map.
Ah, I see.
So injury in this view isn't necessarily a permanent loss. It's more like temporarily interrupted potential.
Interrupted potential.
Yeah.
That can be reclaimed.
Reclaimed and maybe even expanded systematically.
You know, that sounds a lot like something I read about the movement vocabulary effect. Is it similar?
That's a perfect analogy.
Like, if someone speaks 5 languages and has a brain injury affecting speech, they have more pathways, more mental tools to rebuild communication than someone who only knew 1 language.
Exactly that. The richer and more varied your movement vocabulary before an injury, the more patterns you've felt, the more internal connections you've explored, the more resources your nervous system has to draw on for a creative, robust recovery.
So it's about building this rich internal library of movement.
Precisely. And that's why the SAMBA approach, which the invisible injury details so well, really pushes for this conscious exploration, this capability expansion. It's not just about strength or flexibility in isolation.
It's deeper than that.
Much deeper. It's about cultivating a truly adaptable, intelligent nervous system, which is, when you think about it, the most sophisticated form of injury prevention and recovery prep you could imagine.
Okay, building on that, this internal map idea, Hughes then talks about something quite unsettling. The ghost injury.
Ah, yes, the ghost injury. Very important concept.
He's saying that even when the physical healing seems done, conventional rehab often leaves behind these, well, ghosts. Invisible, lingering effects.
That's right. It makes you really question what healed even means. Because, why do so many people still feel limited long after the scans look clear or the pain is mostly gone?
So what are these ghosts? What forms do they take?
Hughes breaks them down well. First, you have neurological ghosts. These are basically protective patterns the brain wired in during the injury to avoid pain, like a neurological shortcut.
Okay, a detour.
A detour, exactly. And that detour can stick around even when the original road hazard, the tissue damage, is gone. It leads to altered, less efficient movement.
Makes sense.
Then there are fascial memories. Think of your fascia, the connective tissue web throughout your body, like this tensegrity structure.
Like a spider web holding tension.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
An interconnected web where tension gets distributed.
Mm.
Well, that web can hold on to the memory of trauma through altered tension patterns. So that ankle sprain you had years ago,
Yeah.
it might still be subtly pulling on things, affecting your hip mechanics, maybe even your jaw, because it changed the tension balance in that whole web.
Wow. Years later.
Years later. And maybe the most subtle are the movement identity scars. These are movements or ranges your nervous system is unconsciously labeled as dangerous because of the injury.
Even if they're safe now.
Even if they're perfectly safe now. It creates these invisible fences around your movement potential. The body creates compensations, and they just get stuck.
So these compensations become ingrained habits. How does SAMB actually go after these ghosts, these things conventional methods might overlook?
Well, it's a really intelligent, multi-layered approach. It starts with what Hughes calls capability archaeology.
Archaeology, like digging up the past.
Exactly. You're actively digging up and rediscovering movement capabilities that got buried under layers of protective compensation patterns, finding what you forgot you could do.
Okay.
Then it uses pattern interruption. This often involves using rhythmic variations and these spiral diagonal movements we'll talk about to literally scramble those old, stuck neurological signals.
Interrupt the habit loop.
Precisely. Which leads into neurological reintegration, using cross-lateral movements across the midline of the body to basically reteach the brain how the left and right sides can coordinate efficiently again, like walking, reaching across yourself.
Reconnecting the lines.
Yes. And finally, identity expansion. This is about exploring movements that might actually exceed what you could do before the injury.
Really? Go beyond the previous baseline.
Yes. It's powerful because it proves to your nervous system unequivocally that the old limitation was temporary. It helps build a new, more capable movement identity.
That is a profound shift, not just fixing, but actively remapping and even upgrading.
Exactly.
And this mention of spiral diagonal patterns, it brings us to another really cool part of Hughes' work. The movement wheel ground, upright, air domains, and this diagonal revolution in recovery. Why diagonals? Why spirals?
Right. So much of traditional rehab, if you think about it, focuses on straight lines. Forward lunges, side leg lifts, straight up and down.
Yeah, linear movements.
Linear. But how often do we actually move purely in straight lines in daily life? Almost never. Life is curved, it's diagonal.
Reaching for something, getting out of a chair.
Getting out of bed, throwing a ball, walking upstairs diagonally. It's all spirals and diagonals. So these movements matter because, first, they naturally engage the body's major fascial lines as integrated systems, not isolated muscles.
A whole web works together.
The whole web. Second, they strongly activate cross-lateral brain coordination, which is, essential for neuroplasticity, for relearning complex movements.
Okay.
And third, they're brilliant at revealing hidden compensations. Movements that might look okay in a straight line suddenly show their limitations when you add that diagonal or spiral component.
So they expose the ghosts, in a way.
They really can, yeah. They make the compensations more obvious.
Okay, so give us a picture. What might some of these spiral diagonal experiments look like across those movement wheel domains?
Sure. Let's start with the ground domain. You could try rolling spirals. Lie on your back and initiate a roll onto your stomach, not by lifting your head, but by gently thinking about connecting, say, your right shoulder towards your left hip. Feel that diagonal connection pull you over.
Gentle, exploring the connection.
Very gentle. It reawakens those core diagonal links. Then, in the upright domain, instead of just walking straight, try walking diagonals. Consciously step forward and slightly across the midline, or maybe step sideways, but reach diagonally forward or back. Just notice how your weight shifts, how your torso responds.
Adding that twist.
Adding that natural twist. And for the air domain, when you're ready, think diagonal step-ups. Step onto a low box or stair, but step slightly across the midline, maybe adding a reach with the opposite arm. It integrates power with that crucial cross-body coordination.
It feels much more whole body, more functional than just straight up and down.
It is more functional. And that's why the Invisible Injury talks about the spiral prescription, why curves heal. It sounds poetic, but there's real logic there.
How do spirals solve that puzzle of needing consistency for learning, but variability for adaptation? They seem opposite.
It's actually quite elegant. Spirals offer consistent movement principles. They follow predictable geometric paths that the nervous system inherently understands as efficient, as natural. That gives the brain the repetition, the pattern it needs to learn.
Okay, predictable pattern.
But at the same time, they offer infinite variability. You can make a spiral tiny or huge, fast or slow, change the orientation. This constant, subtle variation within the consistent pattern drives adaptation. It prevents rigidity.
Consistency in the principle, variability in the execution.
You nailed it. Plus, spirals align with natural movement architecture. Think DNA helices, seashells, galaxies. Our bodies are built with and understand spirals. This allows for tiny microspirals when you're in acute recovery, just gentle explorations, and larger macrospirals later on to reintegrate complex whole-body movements.
This is fascinating. Okay, moving from the movements themselves to how we perceive our recovery. Hughes introduces another tool, the recovery Johari window. I know the Johari window from, communication workshops.
Right, self-awareness, feedback.
How does that apply here, revealing invisible dimensions of healing?
It's a really insightful application. Think of the 4 quadrants in the context of your recovery. The open area is what's known to you and obvious to others, the diagnosed injury, the limp you can see, the progress you measure in range of motion. That's where most rehab lives.
Standard stuff.
Standard stuff. Then you have the blind spot. This is what others might see, but you don't. Maybe subtle ways you're still compensating, movements you avoid without realizing it, or even capabilities others notice that you dismiss.
Things I'm unaware of, but others aren't.
Exactly. And this is often where huge potential for improvement lies hidden, because you can't fix what you don't even know is happening.
Okay, that makes sense. Then the hidden area, that's stuff I know, but keep private.
Yes. This could be the emotional side of the injury. The fear, the frustration, maybe specific movements you're scared to try again, even if your PT says it's okay. Or perhaps capabilities you do have, but you're hesitant to really test out. It's known to you, hidden from others.
Contains limitations, but also maybe potential I'm holding back.
Absolutely. And finally, the most intriguing quadrant, the unknown area. This is territory neither you nor anyone else is aware of yet. Unexplored movement potential, undiscovered ways your body can adapt, maybe even a profound transformation that can arise because of the injury, not despite it.
Wow, that's where the real magic could happen.
That's often where the breakthroughs are found, yes. Discovering you can do things you never imagined possible pre or post-injury.
So the goal then with this Johari model is to shrink those blind, hidden, and unknown areas and expand the open area, bring more into conscious awareness.
Precisely. Expand your conscious capability map.
How can someone listening actually do that? What are some practical ways to work with these quadrants?
Great question. For blind spot reduction, something as simple as filming yourself moving can be incredibly revealing.
Seeing yourself as others see you.
Exactly. Or ask a knowledgeable friend, a coach, a therapist to observe you move and give honest, specific feedback on patterns they see that you might miss.
Okay. What about the hidden area, the internal stuff?
For the hidden area, maybe try journaling about the experience. Write down your feels about movement, the frustrations. Or find a safe person or group to actually talk about the emotional impact. Bringing it into the open, even just for yourself, reduces its power.
Acknowledging it.
Yes. And for that exciting unknown area, this is where exploration comes in. Try improvisational movement, put on some music, and just move without a plan, see what emerges. Or explore a totally different type of movement practice, something completely outside your usual comfort zone.
Like trying dance if you're a weightlifter or vice versa?
Perfect example. It's about approaching movement not just as corrective exercise, but as creative play, as discovery.
This whole conversation really shifts the focus, doesn't it? From just fixing damage to actively exploring and expanding potential. Which brings us to how we make this practical day to day. Hughes talks about a daily recovery revolution. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's about weaving this intelligence into the fabric of your life, not just doing exercises for an hour 3 times a week. The invisible injury suggests simple things, like a morning capability scan. Just 5 or 10 minutes when you wake up. Gentle spirals, maybe some diagonal reaches, connecting with your breath. Noticing, okay, what feels available today? Where is there ease? Where is there restriction? Just checking in.
Like a body weather report.
Kind of, yeah. Then during the day, hourly movement breaks. Super short, 2-3 minutes. Stand up, do a few gentle diagonal reaches, maybe some crossbody marching in place. Anything to interrupt being static and reawaken those connections.
Microdosing movement intelligence throughout the day.
Love that. Microdosing movement intelligence. And then maybe an evening integration session, 10, 15 minutes. Could be larger spiral patterns to kind of process the physical inputs of the day, some gentle diagonal stretching.
Yeah.
Maybe reflect for a moment on any movement discoveries or challenges.
So it's consistent principles, spirals, diagonals, awareness, but applied flexibly throughout the day.
Exactly. Consistent principles, variable expression.
And this naturally ties back to the movement wheel, right? Applying these daily check-ins and explorations, whether you're focusing on ground movements, upright posture, or more dynamic air activities.
Absolutely. You tailor the specific movements to where you are in your recovery and what domain you want to explore, but the principles remain the same. Floor spirals for ground, standing reaches for upright, maybe gentle diagonal hops later for air. Becomes your personal capability expansion toolkit.
It really feels like, as Hughes suggests, the future isn't just about fancier machines or surgeries.
Although those have their place.
Of course,
Yeah.
but the real frontier is cultivating our own awareness, our body's inherent adaptability and intelligence.
That's the core message. Intelligence over just technology. Awareness over just compliance.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the invisible injury and the SAMBA approach, it feels like the big takeaway is this fundamental reframing. Recovery isn't a destination you arrive at, getting back to where you were.
No, it's not a finite game.
It's an infinite game, as Hughes puts it, an ongoing process, exploring potential, adapting, responding creatively to whatever life throws at you. It's a call to shift our mindset, isn't it? From just following instructions, compliance, to active exploration. From just correcting flaws to discovering capabilities. From seeing recovery as this isolated episode to viewing it as part of our lifelong evolution.
Beautifully put. And maybe the final thought to leave people with is this. You are not broken, waiting to be fixed. You are inherently intelligent, deeply capable of growth and adaptation. You're not really a patient needing a cure in this view. You are an explorer, constantly discovering what's possible within you.
An explorer.
Yeah. Think about a spiral. It always circles back, it revisits territory, but it never lands in the exact same spot.
Yeah.
It's always slightly different, slightly evolved.
Right.
In recovery, and maybe in life generally, we circle back to familiar challenges, familiar sensations, only to find that we have changed. We've grown. We've evolved through the process. So the question becomes, what becomes possible for you when you start approaching recovery as an act of creation, when healing becomes discovery, and when any limitation is seen not as an end point, but as a really interesting starting point for transformation?